they do it.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
waiting for the views too. I have a channel too.
Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Thank you. So we are moving through Pekudei, and we are on to another. Here we go, right? Okay. So uh, right here we had again the process above. We were talking about the anointment of Aaron and his sons into the priesthood, etc. So the actual again this process of creating of putting the Mishkan together, the tabernacle. So here we are. Vayhi, and it was. Here we go. B'chodesh Harishon, right? The 10th stage on the first Chodesh Harishon in the first month, Bashana Hashenit in the second year, Be'echad LaChodesh on the first day of that month. So we must be talking about the first of Nisan. Hukam HaMishkan. The Mishkan was erected. So not a lot of Rashis on these. But what's interesting here is we notice that it talks about Moses, right? Vayakem Moshe et Hamishkan. Moses erected the tabernacle, set up the tabernacle. Vayiten et Adanav. He placed the sockets, its sockets. Vayasem et Krashav. And he placed the boards into those sockets. Vayiten et Brichav. And he placed the bars. They were across the board so that they'd stand together and straight. Vayakem et amudav, and he set up its pillars, its posts. Right, there were posts as well at the entrance of the Mishkan. There were also posts between the holy area and the Holy of Holies. Okay, Vayifros et haoel ala Mishkan, and he stretched out, right, the tent over on the Mishkan, of the Mishkan, Vayasem et michseh ha'oel alav milmala, and he placed the covering of the ohel on it from above, kasher tzivah Hashem et Moshe, just as God had commanded Moses. So it's interesting, right? Because Rashi, we have a Rashi on this, right? Vayifros et ha'oil, right? He stretched out, or it's like, when you're making a bed and you take the sheets and you have to, this large sheet, and you have to sort of, I don't know if there's a verb to describe that, but it sort of involves throwing and spreading, okay, spreading. So he spread the tent. And he says, Rashi says, Hen yiriot ha'izim. He says, those are the curtains that were made out of goat hair. Now, the part that uh, puzzles me here is if, in fact, that is the case, and I have little reason to doubt Rashi. Remember, underneath that particular goat hair covering, which is understood as being the ohel part of it, right? There were also 10 curtains that were made out of blue, purple, and crimson yarns. And it doesn't mention that, right? So it's interesting that somehow that's to be understood, right? Even though it doesn't, I don't see anything in the Hebrew here, unless we're to understand Vayakem Moshe Mishkan, that starts this whole process. But when it specifies the specific parts that he put, it doesn't mention these curtains of blue, purple, and crimson yarns. Doesn't. So I have to leave that as a question at this point, right? Uh, to be discovered later on. Maybe at some point I will realize why Rashi is saying what he's saying, and also understand at what point I mean, he had to do it. Moses had to do it before he put the goat hair coverings on it. So I don't know. Have to leave that as an open question. Vayikach, back into the verse. Vayikach, vayiten et ha'edut el ha'eron. He went, right? He took and he placed the testimony, that is the 10 Commandments, right? El ha'aron, into the ark. Vayasem et habadim, and he placed the staves al ha'aron, on the ark, vayiten et hakaporet, and he placed the ark cover. Right, sorry about that. Hakaporet. Let me see if I get it the right size. Right. Al ha'aron milamala. He placed it on the ark from the top. So let me see. Okay, et ha'idut Rashi, right? The testimony, haluchot. He says it's the tablets. So what I will try and do is get some pictures possibly for Friday and just show these things to you again. But I'm hoping at this point you've seen the other sections of this and you can remember them. Vayave et ha'aron el hamishkan, and he brought the ark into the tabernacle. Vayasem et parochet hamasach, so he put it in the Holy of Holies, right? And then he placed the parochet hamasach, that is that curtain, right? That sheet of, or that curtain that was made of blue, crimson and purple yarns, right? In front of it to separate the Holy of Holies from the rest of the tabernacle, right? Vayasech el ha'aron ha'edut, right? And I think here it means he covered, right, over the ark of the testimony, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe, just as God had commanded. Let's see. Okay, nope, that's no Rashi's on this a little bit. Vayitin et hashulchan, and then he placed the table. This was the table of showbread, ba'ohel moed, in the tent of meeting, al yerech hamishkan tzafona, on the side of the Mishkan north, on the north side, michutz laparochet, outside that covering, that screen, right, that was in front. He's talking here, the screen that separated the holy part of the tabernacle from the Holy of Holies. So it's the north side was the showbread table. Okay, here we go. Yerech Hamishkan Tzafona. Right. So this is taken from Tractate Yoma, page 33. Bechatzi hatzfoni shel rochav habayit. He says that, the bayit, of course, refers to the temple, the house, right? And chatzi means the north half of the width of the temple, of the shrine of the temple. And again, it was the way the temple was located, right? It looked like a rectangle, right? The narrower end of the rectangle was on the west side, and so that if you were in the west facing east, north would be to your left. And so this showbread table, because of course the tabernacle here is a model of the temple ultimately that Solomon built. Okay, so Yerech. Yerech almost sounds like a length or something like that. But Rashi says Katargumor, just as the Targum translates this, it's Tzida, right, which would be side. Tzida keyerech hazeh shehu b'tzido shel adam. So he's saying, so maybe yerech here, and Lauren, if you have a translation that can help me here, I will accept the help. But it's sort of, I think he's talking like maybe a limb, that's on the side of a human being. But Rashi, I think, is trying to explain why the Torah would use the term yerech here. If you're unmuted, do you have anything you can mention from your translation?
It just says thigh,
Ah, thank you.
like in.
No, that's important. So I did not have that well translated. That's great. So it does. The word yerech in general, when it's talking about a person, does refer to specifically the thigh.
Okay, so it does, but it does say that Unclos called it a side,
Yes, that's right.
and then it says just like the thigh is on a person's side.
That was Rashi's comment as to why it means the side of the tabernacle. All right, we'll keep going. Thank you. I may need your help a little more, so let's just see. Okay. Okay. Here we are. Vaya'aroch alav erech lechem lifnei Hashem, and he arranged on it the arrangement of bread before God, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe, just as God had commanded Moses. Do you notice how this is like a refrain? Ka'asher tziva Hashem et Moshe, right? Ka'asher tziva Hashem et Moshe. So this is, and again, what is this saying? That the sort of ideal service is the willingness to do what God tells you. And that's, in some ways, a definition of love. When you're willing to subvert your will to someone else, that's a loving act, a very basic loving act. And of course, in being told, commanded to love God, doing what God tells us, right? That is a key element of loving God and of choosing to become devoted. Okay. Vayasem et hamenorah, the oil ma'ed, he placed the candelabra in the tent of meeting, nochach hashulchan, opposite the table, the showbread table, al yerech hamishkan negba, on the side of the Mishkan, on the south side of the Mishkan. I want to make sure I'm not missing Rashi's. Okay, so Vaya'al hanerot lifnei Hashem, and he lit up the lamps before Hashem, before God. Again, ka'asher tziva Hashem and Moshe, just as Hashem had commanded Moses. Vayasem it mizbach hazahav bo'ohel moed, and then he placed the gold altar in the tent of meeting, lifnei haparochet, right in front of that screen, right, that separated the Holy of Holies from the holy part. All this furniture that's going in here is going into the holy part of the shrine, of the tabernacle. So there's another one. Here we go. Vayakter alav ktoret samim, and he caused to smoke on it the incense of spices. Again, kasher tziva Hashem et Moshe, just as God had commanded Moses. By the way, yeah, okay. Here we go. Vayakter alav ktoret, right? He caused the incense to smoke. When? Rashi, shacharit va'arvit, in the morning and in the evening. Kamo shekatuv, just as it, or kamo shene'emar, as it states, ba'boker, referring to this offering, it says, in the early morning, in the morning of the morning, behetivo et hanerot, when he trims the lamps, etc. And I think this is a good place for us to stop for today. And next time I will try and have more illustrations for you so that you can see what we're talking about. Okay. For the record, yes?
I have a question about the Holy of Holies.
Yes.
There was a incense table, a bread table, a lamp, and those three things were in the Holy of Holies, right?
No, they were not. They were in the holy part. The only object in the Holy of Holies was the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay, well then the table of bread, the
Yes.
incense table,
Yes.
and the lamp were not in the Holy of Holies, but near the Holy of Holies. Then
Yes, they were in front of the curtain that separated the Holy of Holies from
the laver where they washed their feet and hands were a little outside.
That is correct. There was outside. It was outside. Yes.
And then the arch of burning was outside also in the
yes,
courtyard.
The altar, right. I have some, give me a second. I'm going to try, while I have a moment, to try and open up some things for you. Let's see if that'll help. Yeah, here we go. I think I'll just go ahead and I'm going to share again and share some pictures just quickly. Not a lot, but a little bit anyway. So here we go. I'm going to try this. Okay, so there we go. Do you see this? There is, without the curtains over it, is the tabernacle.
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
Back in here, you see, this is the curtain that I was mentioning, right? That separated the Holy of Holies from the holy part. This, you can see, is supposedly the showbread table that is on this would be the north side here. Okay, 'cause
Oh.
west there. Okay. And so this would be the showbread table. I feel like, yeah, this is just the top of a post. You can't see the incense altar, the gold altar. No, you cannot see it. And then the menorah would be on this side here. But at least I could find something for you. By the way, when he talks, these are the Adanim. The very first things Moses did was to set up these sockets, right? And the boards themselves were then covered. They're overlaid with gold, and these are the bars that are mentioned. There were two on this. They separated out. This went to the middle here, there, and then there was a bar that actually went through the middle of the boards themselves. So that shows you a little bit there.
With all the table and the incense and all of them were in gold. They were all
Yes,
gold.
they were made out of gold. Correct.
I have a
Oh,
question.
wow.
Yes, Mike.
When the Romans invaded the temple, where
Yes.
did they go? And they said they were looking for God and said, "Where's God?" Where did they go?
I think they went into the ultimate shrine, I'm sure. I know that on the Arch of Titus, there's a relief of them carrying the menorah and possibly the ark. They possibly were carrying that. I know for a fact, I remember, standing out on that arch, them carrying the menorah. But
Mm.
whether or not they also, because they had this big parade when they'd march into Rome and carry the booty that they had. So, you know, I don't know that they were looking for God per se. Maybe they were, you know, but
Yeah, I heard a story like when they
uh,
invaded, they were like physically looking for it
oh, okay.
and
You
they couldn't find it, so they were confused.
I'm going to go on the record here by saying I wouldn't underestimate the Romans' intelligence and that they were very aware of spiritual matters as well. We tend to, because sometimes we tend to look down on people whose cultures aren't our own or whatever, but I suspect, I think were they doing it more to desecrate and sort of punish the Jews? For their rebellious nature, etc. Oh, yeah. I think they were trying to find ways to totally humiliate the Jews.
Hmm.
I think they were after revenge. That I think. But whether they were actually looking for God because they thought God had to be physical, I wouldn't be so
Yeah.
sure of that. So with that, I think before I get myself into more trouble, I'm going to stop the recording.
Well, always escape